Thank you for coming. Thanks, Scott. So this is joint work with Daniela, Saban. I hope this is the clicker. Yeah, okay. And it's something that we are quite excited about, so I'm excited to tell you about it. And there's also, this is sort of the most basic kind of question you can ask about the design of these platforms, and there's lots more questions to be asked and answered. So we are focused on these platforms that have two sides. Agents on both sides have heterogeneous preferences over potential partners. And it's going to be important that these preferences are hard to fully elicit by the platform in any other way than to just sort of show profiles of potential matches to agents and let them figure out how much they like these potential partners. Okay, but this process we think of as being a costly process. Every profile scan, every job application scan actually takes some effort. And so these costs actually matter, they add up. Examples of these markets include dating, accommodation, online labor markets. And the question we're going to ask broadly is going to be, how can the platform facilitate these agents to meet and match with good partners? Okay, so here are some examples. And we will actually be focusing on a very sort of basic fundamental sub-question. And I'll talk a bit about the information disclosure policy, but for the bulk of the talk, I'll be asking just what should the platform allow in terms of who can reach out to a potential partner? Do you allow this on both sides or only on one side? And who is allowed to screen potential partners? Okay, and already on this slide, you can see a bunch of different design examples among all these very, very popular and large platforms. For instance, on Uber, the riders reach out, but neither side screens. Uber does the matching, same on Lyft. Airbnb, the guests have to reach out first, and the hosts could say no with the request to book design. But recently, they've been pushing this instant book design where the host cannot say no on an individual basis. Okay, so that's already 3 different designs. Something like Upwork, it's sort of more open. The platform allows either side to reach out first and either side to say no. And then you have TaskRabbit and Handy, which sort of both operate in this home cleaning space, but they have different designs. And TaskRabbit itself had a design change. Now they have clients reaching out first. Previously, it was the taskers who used to make the applications. Okay, so this is something they worry about. There's a wide diversity even within a particular kind of platform. Okay, so when should the platform, in what kinds of markets should the platform allow agents to screen? And should agents on both sides be allowed to reach out first, or should only one side be allowed to reach out first? And of course, do these design choices matter at all? So just to get you warmed up with at least one example of these markets, think about heterosexual dating. There are tons of apps and sort of platforms for this. And a sort of ubiquitous fact across these platforms is that the ratio is tilted with more men and less women. And also, men are much less likely to receive a response than women on these platforms. Okay, so for instance, on OkCupid, that ratio is 2.5. On Tinder, the reciprocation of likes is like 15 to 20 times less for men than for women, based on some published results, actually. And then you have this app, Bumble, which has been around a couple years. They say it's a feminist app, and it requires that the woman sends the first message. The man cannot. Okay, so you might ask, does it make things even harder for men to have their hands tied in this way? It was tough to begin with. Okay, so we'll have a model with dynamic arrivals and departures. There'll be strategic agents with heterogeneous preferences on both sides. And they will have idiosyncratic match values that are unknown to the platform and discoverable by the agents after spending the screening cost, the cost of looking through the profile. Okay, we are going to find, and I'm going to give you only a sort of sample of our results. I don't have a lot of time. We'll find that design matters. So in a sort of simple couple of settings, we are going to find that if one side of the market informally has a tendency to be more selective, the platform should make that side go first. Okay, so that actually improves the social welfare. That's what the metric will be for us. What we'll find is that the design actually matters counterintuitively, even when the screening cost is vanishingly small. Okay, this happens if you have some vertical differentiation. And in this case, we find, in fact, that you can get a sort of, in the limit, a Pareto improvement in welfare, meaning that you help some agents a lot without hurting others. And this will involve also hiding quality information by the platform. Okay, so in some sense, the platform is going to restrict actions or restrict access to information, and that's going to help. This work actually brings together many different literatures. There is this beauty lies in the eye of the beholder feature of stable matching, which we bring in. There is the search for partners, which comes from this search frictions literature. And there is the externalities, which the two-sided and multi-sided platforms literature focuses on. So we are sort of bringing in aspects of all these. And there's connections with the operations literature as well, though, of course, now the inventory consists of two kinds of agents, okay, who have their own mind, of course. Okay, so here is the model. The actual model is a continuum model. It's sort of the natural one that follows from this discrete setting. So I'll describe the informal model here. So women arrive at some rate lambda w. The other side is men arrive at rate lambda m. The utility of an agent I for matching with an agent J is a sum of two terms. The first one is the quality of agent J, and the second term is the idiosyncratic affinity of agent I for agent J. Okay, we'll think of it as uniform 0, 1 IID. And this is different than the affinity of agent J for agent I. Okay, that's independent in our model. The independence is not crucial. Okay, now this to discover this idiosyncratic term requires I to spend the screening cost to find out how much I likes J. So that's important. Okay, I'm going to tell you how the match occurs, the sort of sequence of steps involved. There's going to be clocks that each agent is endowed with a clock, and this can sort of trigger a sequence of events leading to a match. That's on the next slide. But we're going to have a death process as well. So agents are going to leave at a certain small rate. That's going to make sure that there is a stationary state that results. Agents don't just build up. Okay? And the rate is going to be small to reduce one parameter in the results we quote. It's not very important. We'll think of a monopolistic platform trying to maximize the overall welfare of agents. Okay, so now what happens? Each agent has a Poisson clock. It rings at a rate 1. Okay, so over a lifetime, an agent has many clock rings. What happens when a clock, when agent I's clock rings? This gives agent I the opportunity to ask for a potential match from the platform. Okay, so if there are multiple qualities involved, the platform says, hey, these are the qualities for whom I have inventory. So you pick which one you're interested in, and I'll give you a uniformly random option from what's available. Uniformly random because the platform doesn't know who you're going to like. Okay, so we are sort of focusing on the residue which the platform is not able to figure out your preferences over. So what does agent I do? Agent I can screen the option. If I screens, it costs agent I the screening cost, and I figures out the actual idiosyncratic affinity that I has for J. Whether I screens or not, I can then decide to issue a proposal to agent J. If this proposal is issued, it's immediately conveyed to agent J, who can then again screen or not. If J screens, it costs the screening cost. J figures out UJI. In either case, J can accept the proposal or not. And if everything goes through smoothly, a match is formed, and those two guys leave. If not, they stay, and it's as though nothing happened. Okay, so that's the process that occurs every time a clock rings for an agent. And it's important here that the screening is not simultaneous. So I is doing the screening first if I screens, and then if J gets a proposal, then J may choose to screen. Okay, so that's going to be important. So agent strategies are characterized by what they do in terms of proposing, what do they do in terms of if they get an incoming proposal, okay, in each case do they want to screen or not, and so on. And there is a threshold. Okay, this is sort of equal to their continuation value. They're solving a simple Markov decision problem or a stopping problem. And they have a threshold, and anytime an agent screens, they're going to want to proceed with that potential match or that proposal if the value that they gauge exceeds the continuation value. Okay, so these three things, the proposal strategy, the incoming proposal strategy, and the threshold together determine an agent's strategy. And we'll focus again on a very simple design space. So that the platform, what I described in the model was the no intervention case. The platform can then intervene by constraining agents, preventing one or both sides from screening. Okay, so for instance, in instant book, the host cannot screen, and it can also prevent one side from proposing. Okay, so Airbnb doesn't let the host propose. We'll talk a bit about hiding quality information later. The equilibrium concept is, we call it stationary equilibrium. It goes something like this. You fix agent strategies. If all agents sort of play these prescribed strategies, this produces a steady state. It must be that the agent strategies are a best response to this steady state. Okay? In addition, we have a refinement, which is evolutionary stability. This ensures that certain implausible mixed equilibria are ruled out. And they're implausible because if you start there and you sort of nudge the system slightly, it's going to run away under best responses. Okay, and I can tell you more offline if you're interested. And it turns out with ex-ante homogeneous agents, meaning if I switch off this quality term, which I will do for the next few slides, it turns out that equilibria do not involve mixing. All agents on the same side do the same thing. Okay, it's not something we are imposing. It just turns out that is the case. So simplest case, symmetric market. There is the same arrival rate on both sides, same screening cost on both sides. Valuation distributions are uniform 0, 1 on both sides. So this is a theorem. Okay, so this is like a summary of our result here. And this is just a warm-up. It turns out there are 3 regimes in terms of the screening cost. With small screening costs, your equilibria, it could be men proposing or women proposing, involve one side screening and proposing, the other side screening and accepting or rejecting. Okay? At some point, you switch into this medium cost regime where the proposers are not screening. They are proposing without screening. Okay? And this has to do with the fact that they face a risk of rejection. Okay? So if you had a choice, you'd rather be in the equilibrium where the other side is proposing, because at that point, you're getting pre-approved sort of proposals. Okay, so that's a sort of key thing that plays an important role in our model. For large costs, you sort of recover sort of the Uber design as an equilibrium where both sides are just wanting to match without screening. Okay, so now, so this is what happens in the symmetric case. Platform interventions don't help. The equilibria just seem to sort of recover certain designs, but those designs don't improve welfare in the model. But this changes the moment we have asymmetry in the primitives of the market. So as an illustrative example, I'm going to show you what happens for unbalanced markets. So if men arrive faster than women, that's an unbalanced market. So as long as they are arriving at least 1.25 times as fast, that's the sort of threshold, what happens is that in all equilibria, men are the ones proposing. They are facing a risk of having to leave without matching. So when their clock rings, they are pretty eager to see if something can be done. And because men are proposing, women don't want to propose. Now what this means is that the welfare actually is not that great, and it's the men who are getting hurt because they propose, but they face very likely rejection from women who have more market power. Okay, so the equilibria are not too good for men. So this is the screening cost, this is the welfare. The equilibrium welfare is not too great, and in particular not for the men. And in fact, men don't even want to screen beyond a certain point because they get such frequent rejections. So the intervention we propose is prevent the men from reaching out. Okay, just like what Bumble does. Prevent the men from reaching out. This produces new equilibria. It creates equilibria. That's the blue stuff. And in it, the men are doing much better. In our model, the women are doing slightly worse because they face infrequent rejection. But you could argue that maybe they are happier this way anyway. They don't want a deluge of incoming interest that is sort of not really attractive to them. Okay? So in short, maybe the Bumble's design actually helps men, not hurts them. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to add in some vertical differentiation. So far, all men were the same, ex ante, all women were the same. And I'm going to show you that even as screening costs vanish, the design is important. Okay, so here's the setting. So I have top men and average men. Top men, the match value of a woman for a top man is, let's say, distributed as uniform from half to 1.5, illustrative example. There are more women than top men, so top men are scarce, but there are more men overall than women. Okay, so what do the equilibria look like here? So this is what the equilibria look like. So sort of endogenously what happens is women split into two groups. So there are the reachers and there are what we call the settlers. So the reachers, every woman would rather find a top man that she likes. The reachers are more adamant. They say, I'll not even consider an average man. The settlers, if they get an incoming proposal from an average man, they'll at least screen and then decide. Okay, so what this does is that, of course, the average men want a match, so they send a deluge of proposals. In fact, they propose without screening, and the reason is that these settler women, right, they quickly find an incoming proposal that they like, and they match and leave. The reachers, on the other hand, they keep waiting for a top man, and very often this wait is in vain, and they end up leaving without matching. So they accumulate in the system. So there's an inspection paradox. Any snapshot of the system has primarily reacher women and very few settlers. So most proposals by the men end up in the inboxes of the reachers and get ignored. Not just rejected, they get ignored. And so they need to, in fact, propose without screening. So that might be what's happening there and what led to that kind of a phenomenon. So now we want to make things a little bit better, right? And of course, the ones who are suffering are the average men. So one intervention is familiar to you. We can ask the women to propose, force the men, do not allow the men to propose. This allows the average men to be somewhat selective. But it still has this problem that a fraction of the reacher women are actually leaving without matching in the equilibrium. Okay, this is necessary to make sure that the utilities of the reachers and the settlers is the same. So how do we fix this? So this is a new intervention. We can hide the quality information of the men from the women. In other words, the woman has to actually screen a profile to figure out how much she likes the man. She cannot just put a filter and say, I will not even look at a man if the man is not rated as a top man. Okay, so what this does is now in equilibrium, all the women are in just one bucket, and they're proposing, screening, and deciding, but there is no longer the reachers who are dying without matching. So there's more women available to match with the average men. Okay, so this is sort of fix both the problems. And what's nice is that in this limit of small screening costs, the utility of the top men and the average and the women does not change, but as we sort of use our interventions, it really improves the utility of the average men. This is sort of a Pareto improvement there. Okay, so in short, design matters. If one side of the market is more selective than the other, make that side go first. This can improve the welfare. And it matters even when the screening cost is small. Partially hiding quality information can be helpful. And it can help certain groups of agents without actually hurting others. Okay, let me just mention something that's not on the slides. There's obviously a range of questions here. This is sort of the simplest, one of the simplest questions you can ask. And one space of questions, I mean, of course, there's questions on pricing and revenues of the platform, but also there are questions on how to do the categorization, how to do the search rankings and so on, recommendations in a two-sided matching context. So I'm really excited to work more on such questions, and maybe some of you would be too. Thank you.